Is Planet X God's divine judgment during the final apocalypse of redemption? Part 2, we continue. The 5th year of the Sanhedrin prophecy. In the 5th year, 2012-13, will be the great satiation with eating, drinking, and joy. The Torah will return to those who learned it. And what event could happen that will be the spring of 2006-13 polarize the Jewish people in the land of Israel as to whether the God of Israel is dwelling truly there to protect their city, Jerusalem, and his chosen land of Israel. Did he not proclaim to them that he would protect his own? Will this event that will literally arrive from the heavens and affect this entire globe also be felt and perceived by every human on the face of the earth? Will this be the area in which all the eyes of men and all the tribes of Israel will be focused on the God of Israel? Will this day be the same day when oracles of God will be placed against the Syrians in Hadrach and Damascus? Zechariah 9:1 says, the burden of the word of the Lord against the land of Hadrach and Damascus is its resting place. The Lord will cast her out. The king shall perish, and I will cut the pride of the Philistines and Palestinians, and I will take away the blood from his mouth and the abomination from between his teeth. But he who remains, even he shall be of our God. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey. He shall speak peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea. Mediterranean Sea, that is, to the Red Sea, from the Nile River to from the river to the ends of the earth. That what event in the history of the world that will more than any other remind the Jews living in the diaspora that Israel is their home? Now, let's go back down the article. Before the end of this age is totally completed, those who have survived the final tribulations will be known as the remnant, as spoken in the sacred texts. They will have moved, driven back, or fled as refugees to God's holy land, the land of Greater Israel. This is a consensus of all the prophets of Israel and Judah. When that happens, there will be one concluding epic era that all the saints will survive their encounter with God's planetary emissary as the God of Israel sends his wrath down upon the oppressive nations of the world. Welcome to this solar system, our sun's twin binary star, Planet X. The catastrophic era in the days of Abraham and the ancient Sumerian empire of Nimrod. Recognized as the oldest, or one of the oldest civilizations in the world, was the land of Sumer. The roots of Sumeria were first established in the Mesopotamian river delta of the Tigris and the Euphrates, out of which 2 of the 4 rivers flowed of the Garden of Eden. This culture was nurtured under the one world order of a ruler called Nimrod, and his empire spread across the entire Fertile Crescent. Today we look at this barren land and say, why was this region called fertile? Here was a land in all the ancient chronicles of the national peoples that was regarded as one of the most prosperous and advanced regions in the use of advanced technologies. It also shared the reputation of hosting the golden era of materialism, spiritual pride, and corruption. Here at Nineveh and Damascus were the crown cities of the one world order of King Nimrod, the son of Cush. In the imperial rule of the reign of Nimrod, the city of Shinar was the first of his royal cities. They were all built to be visible symbols of his unchallenged rule. The fame of Nimrod went clear across the post-Diluvian lands of the Middle East and now hosted the first of the great ancient world empires. The symbol of kingship was placed upon his head, and the era of the king gods was now to begin. Instead of giving his kingship credit to the God of creation, all the power and glory was diverted to himself. He pretended he was the God. As the ancient book of Jasher, more ancient than the book of Judges, wrote of this amazing imperial ruler called Nimrod. The book of Jasher writes, quote, And all nations and tongues heard of his, Nimrod's, fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their lord and king, and they all dwelt with him in the city of Shinar. And Nimrod reigned in the earth over all of the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union, but Nimrod did not go to the ways of the Lord. And he was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood until those days. End quote. Book of Jasher, page 16. The Emperor Nimrod ruled over one of the most advanced cultures and civilizations in antiquity, along with the Indus Valley civilizations and the ancient kingdoms of Old Egypt. It was Nimrod who erected the Great Tower of Babel in defiance of the God of Abraham, and sought to challenge the very sovereign power of the Almighty God. His empire appeared to disappear from history in a great cataclysm that destroyed the Tower of Babel, and at this time the tribes were divided up, and the cohesiveness of the empire collapsed by the creation of the confusion of tongues, that is, the separation of the language into many languages among his citizens. We remember the ancient legends of the babbling languages of ancient Sumer. The different tribes of his kingdom suddenly had a new language, and there was no longer any common world language for this economic and religious world order. The destruction of the cohesiveness and the Nimrodian empire was gone forever. During this era, according to the ancient Jewish book of Jasher, Abram was born to Terah, an oracular priest, and the Terah was also the military commander of Nimrod's imperial dynasty. So his father, Abraham's father, was a military commander under Nimrod. Abram's birth, celebrated by the elite of the empire, was also the night of omens in the heavens. It foretold of the future day in which Abraham would destroy the last military coalition of Nimrod and the kings of the east, quote unquote. Nimrod's empire was the inheritor of the land where the pre-flood civilizations of the Watchers, quote unquote, who in the Genesis story were called the sons of God, reigned as judges. According to the ancient Jewish texts, 200 of the Watchers that came down to this earth, quote unquote, and in defiance of their divine mission by the God of the spirits, they violated their spiritual estate and cohabited with the daughters of the descendants of Adam. Out of these unions, they created an amalgamated order of angelic watchers and terrestrial humanoids that became known as the Nephilim, or the giants of old. When the family of Abram's nephew Lot was captured by the kings of the east, along with the 5 kings of the Vale of Siddim, the valley of Sodom, that is, this child of prophecy, Abram also met his prophetic destiny. He had to rescue his own relatives, and now the fate of Nimrod was truly in the hands of Abram. After the debacle of the Tower of Babel, Emperor Nimrod was overthrown from his imperial rule, but did retain his rule over his local people at Shinar. According to the book of Jasher, King Nimrod was a member of a coalition of kings who invaded the valley of Sodom and expanded their combined imperial rule over the lush garden district along the lakeside valleys, and that later became Sodom and Gomorrah of the Dead Sea. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah are, of course, the destroyed cities which lie under the Dead Sea. As one ruler in alliance with 5 rulers in the Middle Eastern military coalition, King Nimrod was renamed in the biblical order as Amraphel, the king of Shinar, Genesis 14:8. This fact was confirmed in the book of Jasher. King Nimrod came to his final end when Abram destroyed the last military coalition of the ancient world order. The remnant of Nimrod's one world order was now over. This typology would carry ramifications millenniums later to the seed of Abraham, who would once again be involved in the destruction of the last one world order upon this planet Earth, It will be ruled by the anti-Messiah, which many prophetic scholars feel will be the descendant of a rebellious tribe of Dan in the house of Israel, with the royal descendant of King David of the tribe of Judah. Yet we have to ask, will the anti-Messiah be a descendant of King Nimrod? Well, in this Bible Searcher article titled Abram, the son of an oracle high priest, we visited this golden yet decadent era where Adam was propelled and his family to flee for their lives. They fled to the mountain regions of the Chaldean of Urartu, that was near the Ararat chain of mountains, not from Ur of the Chaldees. The Torah version of Nimrod tells us, Genesis 10, 6, 8, 12, quote, "And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before, Hebrew in place of, whereof it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babylon, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar or Sumer. Out of the land went forth Ashur, Hebrew, he went forth out of the land into Assyria, and built Nineveh, the city, Rehoboth, and Calach, and Resen between Nineveh and Calach. The same is a great city," end quote. In this land called there's the cradle of civilization, ancient cuneiform tablets and inscriptions led modern archaeologists to the archaeological library, the huge library of Sumer, as they tried to recover the lost history and knowledge of the ancients. This was a land that was recognized as more ancient and more powerful than either King Nebuchadnezzar, the imperial ruler of Neo-Babylon. It was King Nebuchadnezzar's son-in-law, King Nabonidus, whose passion was not to rule Babylon, but to be an archaeologist and uncover the secrets of the ancients of his own land, the Sumerians. While the king went on his own archaeological digs, he left his own son, the prince heir of Babylon, Belshazzar, to be the ruler of Babylon. In Nabonidus' absence, the armies of the Persians, the Medes, and the Persians came and conquered the most powerful and impregnable city in the entire world, while its ruler was reveling in a banquet, toasting and desecrating the golden vessels of King Solomon's temple dedicated to the God of Israel. And in that grand city, it was King Nebuchadnezzar who built a replica of the Tower of Babel, along with the famous Hanging Gardens, in order to glorify and replicate the era of the ancient Sumerians. In the land of Sumer was a confederation of city-states that included the major cities of Eridu, Kish, Uruk, Ur, Sippar, Nippus, Adab, Uma, Lagash, Larsa, Eshnuna, Shadupum, Isim, Jedensur, and Surupak. All of these cities were under a universal rule of an empire that spread from the cradle of civilization in the Mesopotamian region all the way to Damascus today in modern Syria. This land was recognized as the land of Senir or Sumer. It was nestled between the snow-capped peaks of Mount Hermon in northern Israel, and the land surrounding the city of Damascus was known as Sinar or Shinar. Today, the ancient Sumerian language is an extinct language, much like the Hebrew language a century ago, written on clay tablets in a fascinating pictograph script. It was also a linguistic mystery that all expert attempts to connect its origin had failed. Therefore, the homeland of Abraham, who was the first Hebrew, was followed in about a year of 2000 BC with the Akkadian Empire, whose imperial Semitic language, Akkadian, along with the Sumerian language, also remain in part a mystery to linguists even to this present day. Now we come to Velikovsky. the mythologist and Sitchin, the Sumerian chronologer. Velikovsky and Sitchin. It was in the years of the decade of the 50s that a controversial series of books were released that caused a world sensation. A Jewish psychiatrist turned ancient mythologist, Immanuel Velikovsky, released his series of books beginning with, quote, Worlds in Collision, end quote, that proclaimed that the catastrophes told in the histories of the mythologies of the ancients could be correlated with the literal interpretation of the histories of the Hebrew Tanakh. Here was a catastrophic era whose literal understanding was lost in the myths of the ancients because the tales were too horrific to remember. So they were sublimated in what Velikovsky calls collective amnesia, quote-unquote, and formulated into the myths of the ancients. As the preface of his first book stated, Immanuel Velikovsky, Worlds in Collision is a book of wars in the celestial sphere that took place in historical times. In these wars, the planet Earth participated too. The historical cosmology story of this book is based on the evidence of historical texts of many people around the globe, on classical literature, on epics of the northern races, on sacred books of the peoples of the Orient and Occident, on traditions and folklore of primitive peoples, on old astronomical inscriptions and charts, on archaeological finds, and also on geological and paleontological material. The Hebrew stories were recognized to be the most accurate of ancient tales. These were historical events in the lives of the children of Israel who were assigned by the sovereign will of the Almighty God of Israel to be his chosen people. It was their future lives that were predicted centuries prior to Abraham and the patriarchs and fulfilled in the great escape exodus from Egypt during the plagues and cosmic catastrophes that toppled the ancient dynasties of Old Kingdom of Egypt. In the clouds of a cataclysmic volcanic eruption upon the mount called Sinai, the ancient Israelites made a covenant with Hashem, their God, and it was later reaffirmed amidst the erupting pyres of smoke and ash of fire. This established the Hebrew as a nation and whose prophetic future was told in advance by the prophets of old, even to the end of the age. The knowledge of the age of the Sumerians was lost for millenniums in the archives of ancient tombs, royal cuneiform storage rooms, and monumental engravings. In the mid-19th century, the Sumerian texts were first being translated by the scholars of antiquities. But it wasn't until 1976 when a Russian Jew raised in Roman Palestine, Zachariah Sitchin, published his first book, titled The 12th Planet, of his best-selling series, The Earth Chronicles. Confirmed by many now in ancient literature, it's become a passion of many scientists who had unlimited interest in this unknown planet, coined by astrophysicists as Planet X, and named by Sitchin as the Sumerian Nibiru. Through the eyes of the Sumerians, he relooked at the history of the Hebrews living in a world of multiple and cyclical catastrophes that he felt in part were caused by the return of a rogue planet on a much larger elliptical orbit than any other planets known in our solar system. According to this ancient linguist of Hebrew, Latin, hieroglyphics, cuneiform, and other ancient languages, the ancient mythologies that were left behind of civilizations no longer here were not concepts of a writer's fantasy. They were actually remnants of the repository of learning from true ancient memories. It was his contention that the Bible should be read as a literal, historical, and scientific document of the ancient Hebrews who left their scientific record and observation as their legacy. Their testimony was also their spiritual legacy of its effect in the relationship with their God, the Almighty One of Israel. So when you look at these records, literally, the records of the Holy Bible, we may have to reconsider that in the ancient times, they did have close encounters with stellar and interplanetary bodies. When these planetoid bodies flew by in close call flyby, inbound to Earth, the resident humans were able to view the other planet close up as it flew by. These flybys also result in catastrophic events in the world in which they lived. If the following testimony is true, then this planet Earth will again witness a close flyby of a planetary body. Only then will our eyes be open to the wisdom of the ancients, which we so casually dismiss as insignificant tales of ancient legends and myths. According to the Hebrew scholar, author, speaker, archaeologist, Sumerian linguist, and Sumerian historian Zecharia Sitchin, the research and translations of the ancient texts of the Sumerian reveal that they knew of a 10th planet in our solar system of 12 solar bodies that included the sun and the moon. The Sumerian epic of creation supported pictorial representations of our sun, including 11 orbiting planets and moons that included a yet-to-be-discovered 10th planet. These were engraved on the VA-243 cylinder, today residing in the archives of the Berlin Near Eastern Museum. There we see the sun surrounded by 10 planetary bodies. So this 10th planet was called Nibiru, was translated from the Akkadian language as the, quote, planet of the crossing or passing, the crossing place or the place of transition, end quote. Its insignia in the cuneiform language was the cross or the winged disc. It was later known to the Babylonians as the celestial body associated with the god Marduk. In most of the Babylonian texts, Planet X Nibiru and Marduk were associated with the planet Jupiter. Yet, according to some scholars, as noted in the 5th tablet of the Enuma Elish, Nibiru could have been associated with the pole star, whose real identity was either Thuban or Kochab, known today as Ursa Minor. The image of this winged globe, it is believed, was caught on a rare series of images of Soho C3. Images dated March 27, 2009. The images prior and later did not reveal any images of the winged globe at the 4 p.m. image of the sun. On the date of these images, planet Mercury, like every planet seen within the visual realm of the sun, shone as a bright orb with a slice of light next to the sun. In this case, it was the planet Mercury. As can be seen by planets on Soho, they have the appearance of a bright orb with a slice of light to either side. The winged globe in the center of the Soho picture does not have this slice of light imagery, but looks instead as a winged globe as seen below in a close-up picture. This planet was reputed, according to the transition of the ancient records of Sumer by Zecharia Sitchin and Barak Eldon, to be the planetary home of a higher society of humanoid beings called Anunnaki. This identity of this name, Anunnaki, was a name that was collaborated in later Jewish intertestament books such as the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Jasher, and referenced in the Tanakh in the Genesis account of the Watchers, the Watchmen, the Judges, and the Sons of God. According to the interpretation of the Sumerian cosmology in Sitchin's Earth Chronicles, the ancient Sumerians have the account of the formation of our asteroid belt when a cosmic invader arrived into our solar system. It collided with a larger water-laden planet called Tiamat. And together, both the water world and the invading planet or star had several moons or planets that were involved in this cosmic war of the worlds. This cosmic invader, inbound to us, according to the Sumerians and later the Babylonians, was called Marduk, though in the ancient world it was yet to be undiscovered solar body in our modern solar system that rotated around the sun in a very long elliptical orbit. According to the Sumerians, and agreed by Sitchin and Eldon, this planet X is a large planetary body up to 4 times larger than Jupiter that possesses a highly elliptical 3,630-year orbit that is also the same orbit as 2000 CR 105. It's been anticipated that this planet or dark star would return with a flyby through our inner solar system. According to the chronology of this planet, in the ancient past, before the creation of this Earth, one of the moons of this planet Nibiru collided with a larger water planet called Tiamat that orbited between Mars and Jupiter. Tiamat split into two fragments. The larger formed the proto-Earth called Kingu that was sent into a new orbit between Venus and Mars, with a similar fragment called its moon. Kingsu, says Sitchin, is now known to be planet Earth. The rest of the collision debris formed into the asteroid belt. The Kuiper belt today includes the comets and rogue miniature planetoids. Today, new investigators such as Andy Lloyd suggest that the cosmic invader coming into us, Planet X or Nibiru, is actually a brown dwarf star. Now, let me put in my 2 cents here. I have to confirm to you that a couple of years ago, NASA did confirm to us that there is a brown dwarf star just outside of our solar system, which is pretty close for astronomical distances. I mean, to have a brown dwarf star, a huge thing, just at the edges of our solar system is very bad news inbound towards Earth, according to NASA. So, this cosmic invader is actually the brown dwarf star, the binary twin of our solar sun, as documented in his book, Dark Star. Andy Lloyd, Dark Star. It was larger than the size of Jupiter with several orbiting moons. The clarity of the understanding of the ancient Sumerian text is sketchy about whether the cosmic invader was Nibiru or whether Nibiru was one of its orbiting planets. The genetic identity of Planet X is also still unclear as to whether this will become the dark binary star or the major planet that orbits in its own solar system. So one of these solar bodies was called Nibiru, the home planet, and the historical text by the Sumerians. It was reputed to be the home, as we said, of the Anunnaki, translated by Sitchin to its meaning as, quote, those who from heaven to earth came, end quote. Planetary theorists continue to speculate on the origins of our solar system. The theorized mega-continent called Pangaea, that Bible searchers proposed as being the original one-world continent where Eden was located, today has a massive gap in this planet where the Pacific Ocean today is located. Using the cosmology of Sumerians, the massive Pacific Ocean was the remnant where our moon was part of our proto-Earth mother planet, the water world called Tiamat. Not only that, the water planet Tiamat was located between Mars and Jupiter, and possibly was a planet that could or did sustain life. This area is now filled in with the asteroid belt, the remnant of that day in the distant past in which the wars of the heavens destroyed one water-based planet in order to create a proto-planet Earth, now with her new moon. So, synthesizing biblical record and geological records, and astronomical, of course, it appears that the crustal mantle of the Earth fragmented during the Noah's flood about the year 2345 BC, when the massive amount of water bore down upon the basaltic tectonic plates between what is now the Atlantic Ocean between the North American continent and Europe. The sedimentary evidence of the paleocurrents of the North American continent testified to that effect. The continental tectonic plates of this landmass, located only on one side of the planet, fractured. This occurred, according to the biblical record, at the birth of the patriarch Peleg, whose name was given to him, which in Hebrew means division. I mean, it's also a Greek word, pelagos, meaning separation by a body of water. Now, the separation of the continents finally began to separate when that which was fractured, completely separated, began its continental migration at the death of Peleg in the year of 2008 BC. At this time, the divine judgment came down upon this earth because of the erection of the Tower of Babel to challenge the sovereign authority of the God of creation. These 7 separated continental landmasses would eventually become distributed all around the earth. The Sumerian cosmology also explains that upon ancient Nibiru's journey around the sun, it returned back into stellar space. As it headed through the outer solar system, it flipped the planet Uranus on its side. As it passed by the planet Saturn, it pulled 2 of Saturn's moons from their orbits and flung them into highly elliptical orbits around the sun beyond the planet Neptune. Here we find these 2 former moons of Saturn known to us today as a planet Pluto and Charon. The Anunnakis and Watchers. Was there a superior race to the humans in the era before the flood? That will be our 3rd video.